Welcome to the first video in a new series where I'm going to go through every card of Tomb of the Lich Lord. Now, in the 3 gameplay videos on my channel, you got to see all 6 hero cards that came in this set, but not all the other cards came out. And I really want to show all of them because the artwork in this game, I think that's what has really grabbed me. Now, the game itself is fun, and doing a little research, I see it was designed by Thomas Denmark. So, first of all, it's awesome to have a name behind the game, but then I noticed a lot of this artwork was also by Thomas Denmark. So I did just a cursory search on his name to learn a little bit more about him. Man, has he been around. He is illustrated for Dungeons and Dragons, for World of Warcraft, Star Wars, so many things that I've been into in my life. And it's just funny how this artwork really grabbed me. It really takes me back to the early days of like Dungeons and Dragons and just fantasy role-playing games. I started back in the early 80s. I think it was like, it may have been 80 or 81 with Dungeons and Dragons. And although the artwork nowadays, the fantasy art is great in its own way, there's just something about the old classic vintage stuff, and that's what this artwork reminds me of. So there are other artists that worked on this, and I apologize I did not go through and get their names, but with Thomas Denmark having done so much, I had to mention his name in this. Okay, so in this video I'm going to go over adventure cards, and these are the brown-backed cards. Now there are 2 types. There are the ones that can be purchased with green glory points, and there are adventure cards that can be purchased with red peril points. In this video I'm just going to cover the glory point cards. The next video will show the peril point cards. Now, there are 2 types of cards you can purchase with glory points, and those are the yellow treasure cards and the blue boon cards. Now, if you look back here behind the title, real lightly you can see treasure and boon printed. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now, there is a limit to how many cards each hero can carry as far as treasure and boons, and it's printed right here on their character sheet. So in this case, the paladin can have a maximum of 2 treasure cards in play in his inventory, and that means out on the table. This does not take into account what's in your hand. That doesn't matter. So he can have up to 2 treasure cards in his inventory and up to 3 boon cards in play. Okay. So there's one other thing I wanted to point out on these cards. Now down here in the lower left corner, you see this little skeletal hand. That is the set symbol for Tomb of the Lich Lord. Every set has their own symbol, so if you start mixing sets later on, you'll be able to easily separate them back out, you know, if you want to just play Lich Lord or whatever, take out those other set cards. So when I opened this pack, there were 2 shrink-wrapped decks of cards, of 55 cards each. This was on top of one, and this was on top of the other, the A deck and the B deck. Now in the A deck, there were these 3 heroes, and there were enough cards to play the game. In fact, that was the only deck I opened at first. And game 1 on my video, on my channel, only had those 55 cards. These are kind of the basic cards. It's a great place to start to learn the mechanics and just get the flow of the game, learn the phases. Then after several games of that, then I opened the B deck and mixed those in, and that's where I got some, those are the tougher monsters, the better equipment, and some new mechanics. So with all 110 cards, I played games 2 and 3 on my channel. So why did I go through all that? That's because along with the little skeletal hand there, you'll see the number 1. Those all came from that A deck, the basic ones. And then there are cards that have a number 2. Those came from that B deck. So the number 2s are the ones that are a little more advanced. I mean, there's not a big difference. But what was fun is playing with the original 55, getting used to those cards, and then when I opened this and added them, all those new cards, it was great. Okay, so I'm going to start with the treasure cards first, and I have divided them out into 3 types. All right, the first type are the anytime cards. That can be cast anytime. It's an instant, so the card will be discarded when it's used. Then you have the cards that are played in the hero phase, and they come out as permanents on the table. Now these are the ones that count towards your inventory limit. And then the third type are also played in the hero phase, but these are called attachments, and they actually attach to a permanent, and these do not go towards your limit. Okay, so I'm going to start with, of those 3, I'm going to start with the anytime cards. In fact, this is the only one that's in this set. So you've got this card that can be cast anytime. It's an instant. It gets discarded, and it's a potion. And when you drink it, your hero recovers 1 wound. This is the only potion in the game. So let's take a look. There's the artwork. Now it says, made from holy water and still beating heart of a sanctified animal. In fact, you can see in there, you see the heart. Now it's red. Now red is the typical color for healing or for life, you know, in fantasy games. So that makes sense. All right, so that is the Potion of Life. Next, we are going to cover the permanent cards that go onto the table, and like I said, these count towards your inventory limit. Now each one has a type. The iron breastplate, it is armor, and this is the only armor that came in this set. But once you start mixing sets, keep in mind that you can only have 1 card of each type in your inventory at a time. It wouldn't make sense to have 2 sets of armor. Now in your hand, it doesn't matter. We're talking just inventory limits. Alright, so when you play the iron breastplate, you place 1 token on the card. At any time you may remove the token or discard the card to prevent 1 melee wound. So basically you get to use it twice. And the flavor text says, penetrate this. Now that is some pretty thick looking armor. I would feel well protected if I was wearing that. Alright. The next one, Belt of Brawn. Now this is the only belt in this set, and when you play it, when you've got it in your inventory, your hero has +1 for their melee combat. Down here we actually see her wearing the belt. She's got this big demon looking thing, or a fiend. And she says, I feel as strong as a bugbear. Now bugbears are going to come up a few times. Those are the nasty monsters in this. So anyway, there's the belt. Next is the Brain of Zum. Now this is the only brain in this set. And when you play it, your hero has +1 magic in combat. If you also notice on the side here, it will show what bonus you get. So if you're not interested, you know, in the artwork or the name of it or anything like that during gameplay, you can just stack these like this and just take a quick glance and see what bonuses you're getting. So this one says, Zum's apprentice died before the transplant was completed. And to me it feels like there's a story there. So anyway, there's the brain. It's kept inside of a jar. Okay, it's pretty self-explanatory. Next we have Dark Kitty. This is a familiar. It's the only familiar in this set. And when you play it, your hero has +1 to magic, so just like the brain. But this also has Defend to the Death. And at any time, you may discard this card to prevent 1 wound. And there's the Dark Kitty himself, all glowy. His eyes are glowing. Definitely some magic going on. Meow. I said meow. Okay. Next, we have the only footwear in this set, and this is the Boot of Allah Hazad. When you wear it, when you have it equipped, your hero has +1 to their speed. Now remember, the amount of movement points you get each turn is the same as determined by your speed. So if you have a bonus to the speed, you also have +1 movement point. And there's the boot. And it says, this boot is all that remains of Allah Hazad. Again, there's some kind of story there. What happened to Allah? We may never know. This one is a key, a gilded key. And when it's in your inventory, you have a +2 to open any door. So that goes towards any locked or trapped doors. At any time, you may discard this card to re-roll one of your dice. That's how I've used this the couple of times it's come out for me. Now in the artwork, we've got someone using the key, and it's on this cool skeletal lock. That's really awesome. Okay. Open, please, for the love of Omnissus. Open! There's a bugbear after me. Yep, there we go. Bugbear. Okay, next we have the only mercenary in this one. This is the Banis Mercenary. Your hero has +1 to melee, and she also has this Defend to the Death, like the Dark Kitty. At any time, you may discard this card to prevent 1 wound. It says, Banis mercenaries are loyal only to money. So based on this, yeah, she could leave you. She will protect you while she's there. But yeah, no, you could lose her at any time. And yeah, she's got the sword and shield. Okay. Now in this one, there are actually 2 rings in this set. The first one being the Ring of Arcana. When it's in play, you place 1 token on the card. At any time you remove the token or discard the card to prevent 1 magic wound. And you see her, she's wearing the ring. And notice this damage that she's preventing is purple. And that's the color of magic. So I thought that was a great detail. In fact, elf, this may be the elf sorceress that came in the game. This says, forged in the fires of Dalmaranthas. Okay. So that's the first ring. The second one is the Ring of Luck. When played, place 2 tokens on the card. At any time, you may remove 1 token or discard the card to re-roll one of your die rolls. Now that would come in real handy, and you can actually use it 3 times before it's gone. I need luck to get out of this mess. And we see this guy here. It looks like maybe the paladin, looks like a fighter. He's got his ring on, and man, he's got things grabbing hold of him, things at his feet. Yeah, a little luck wouldn't hurt. Okay, this one is the 51-foot rope. It's the only rope. +2 against pits and spikes. So as you're traveling the map, you may come across some pits or some spikes in some of those grim passageways. Now I'll cover all the map cards in a future episode. But this gives you a +2 when you have to deal with pits and spikes. And at any time you may discard the card to prevent 1 wound from an encounter trap. So when your opponent plays, you know, Poison Cloud or, Acid Cloud or Poison Darts or whatever, this can prevent a wound from that. And there you go, you've got your standard 51-foot rope. It says, don't go anywhere without your 51 feet of rope. Now, back in the day, you couldn't go anywhere. You did not head out on an adventure without a 50-foot rope and a 10-foot pole. Okay, here's the only shield. It's a wooden shield. At any time, you may discard this card to prevent one melee wound, which makes sense. And here we see this, I don't know, skeleton or ghoul or something beating on this guy. And he's using his wooden shield, which is taking some damage. Says, ouch, I think I got a splinter. Yeah, probably from the shards, the wooden splinters there. Okay. Next is the only staff in this set, the teleport staff. When played, place 3 tokens on the card. On your turn, you may remove 1 token or discard the card to relocate your hero to an adjacent space. Ignore doors and walls, limit once per turn. Now, what really makes this one great is ignore doors and walls. So if you're facing a trapped door or a locked one, or if there's a wall there, not a door at all, it doesn't matter. You just go to an adjacent map card. But you can only use it once per turn. This says, I can walk the ethereal void with ease. So it shows the guy with his staff. Back here you see the portal, and it almost looks like he just walked straight through the wall. That's pretty neat. Okay. Next, the only storage item in the game, and this is a backpack. When you equip this, your hero may carry an additional 3 treasure cards. Now, there are a couple of heroes that only have like 2 treasure cards as their limit, and there's one, I think the sorceress maybe, she can only carry 1 treasure item. So this would be great for her. This would be her treasure item, but it would allow her to carry 3 more. This says, it'll fit if I cram it in hard enough. And you've got this cool leather backpack, buckle. Yeah, tried to cram all 3 items in there. Okay. And next we have this ward. It's the Holier Lantern. Now for a while, I just thought that was the weirdest name, Holier Lantern. I was like, why would it be called that? Well, we'll get to that in a minute here. But when you play it, each monster costs 1 additional peril, while each undead costs 2 additional peril to play against you. Okay. Now, if this looks familiar, that he's got the lantern there, and I believe this is the paladin. It sure looks like it. If that looks familiar, it's because it is the right side of the artwork on the box. Now, look, that's only half the art. What is this? Well, I would recommend coming back and watching episode 2 to see what card that might be. Alright, so that weird name, let's see what this says. This Holy Lantern is holier than the original Holy Lantern. That's why it is the Holier Lantern. So, man, that cracked me up when I saw that, okay? Next, and finally, of the permanent items, we have the only weapon in this set. This is the Axe of Weeping Wounds. Now, when you've got this equipped, and you have a successful melee attack. Now, see that little starburst around that? That means on a successful melee attack, you're going to be able to perform a weeping wound using this axe, which is very intricate. Look at that. Look at the detail. Definitely dwarven craftsmanship. Okay, the opponent must overcome a threat, melee threat, get a 5 or better, or they take an additional wound. I guess so. And this says, the Axe of Weeping Wounds was forged in the depths of Nim Azul with the tears of dwarven maidens. That's why it's called the Weeping Wounds. Alright, and then the third and final type of treasure card is the hero, played in the hero phase, and these are the attachments. They attach to any of the permanent cards. And this one is a gem. Now this is the only attachment in this set. And when you've got it attached, it says your hero has +1 melee. Now if the treasure card that this is attached to is the subject of a forced discard, you may discard this card instead. In fact, down here it says, Eldritch Lord's prized loyalty above all things, which is why they made this bauble. And that loyalty, it really plays in because it allows you to get rid of this just so you can keep whatever the other thing was. I don't know, there's something about the loyalty right there, but look at the detail here. That is awesome. You've got the gem right there in the middle. Okay, so that is the last of the treasure cards. There were 3 treasure types. There are also 3 boon types. The first is a response card. These are instants where you discard them when you use them. Now, response is played during combat. So when a monster or hero announces their attack against you, that is the time to play a response card. Next is are the cards played in the hero phase. These are also instants, so they're discarded when played. And the third type, also played in the hero phase, but these are the permanents that come out onto the table when you play them. These count towards your inventory limit on the character, or on the hero card. And we're going to start with the response cards. Now there are only 2 in this set, and one is Repel, one is Repel Undead. Let's look at Repel. When you play this one, the target attacking encounter monster is discarded. So like I said, when a monster announces its attack against you, that's when you play this. And then the monster is discarded before it can fight. So this is how you get out of fighting. And it's only good for encounter monsters, not quest monsters. So the artwork, we've got this fighter here, kind of showing the monster the door. And it says, "Go away, bad monster." That's exactly what the card does. It repels an attack. Now what makes this one different, first, target attacking undead monster, encounter monster, is discarded. So this one, it has to be undead, but you get this extra bonus. Your hero gets a +1 to magic combat this turn. So here we've got the guy, he's repelling all these undead that are attacking him. And it says, "From Agonon's Hollow to the Batula River reach the stench of death, but no more, for I defy the Lich Lord." Okay. The next type, we have the instant cards. Now these are discarded when you use them. This one's the Minor Healing, and its type is Vitalis. And when you play this, you're going to recover 1 wound. In fact, the artwork shows her using some Vitalis magic to heal this guy. In fact, you see the bloodied sword laying there. So, yeah. And it says, "It's difficult for those who study the arcane arts to call on Omniscience for the ability to heal." Okay. Now, why is it difficult? Just don't know. Okay. Next, we have a Minor Teleport. This is a warp. And when you play this, you get to relocate your hero to any space up to 3 spaces from your current location. It can be horizontally and or vertically, but not diagonally. And you get to ignore doors and walls. So I actually used this card to win, I think it was game 3, if I remember, game 2 or 3. So that's awesome, especially you get to move up to 3 spaces. And it says and or, so if you start going one direction, you can switch directions. You don't have to go straight or all straight up and down. You can mix and match just as with everything else, never diagonally. Okay, so here we have the guy, and he's doing, again, there's green. I noticed all the teleport and warps and all that, use that green color. It says, "Warping through the ethereal void is dangerous and exciting." I can only imagine. All right, and the last one, this is the third instant, called Transference. It's also a warp. Switch the positions of your hero and any other hero. And here, that's what's clearly illustrated. Very good. It says, "Oriella is maker and queen of the ethereal void, and yet stranger dimensions have I traveled." So here, Oriella sounds like a goddess. So, I don't know. See, now it's starting to put together a pantheon here. All right, so that is, anyway, that's the last instant. Now we move on to the permanents. These are the ones that come into play onto the table. And this first one is a blessing. In fact, it's the only blessing. And it's called the Blessings of Nakari. When this is in play, your hero gets a +1 to all 3 stats. Melee, magic, and speed. And again, your movement points is determined by your speed. So this also helps that. You get to do an extra thing each turn. And there's Nakari. Nice big headdress. It's all in black. Nakari, the Queen of Darkness. That makes sense. Loves those who love her and scorns those who don't. So yeah, you definitely want to be on her good side. Okay. Next, we have improved aim. Now there are 2 maneuvers in the game. And this is, when you play this, your hero has a +1 for melee combat. The artwork, it kind of shows, probably just, you know, where you aim the swords, where it's going to go. You have more control. And he's pointing. He's telling exactly where it's going to go. Now it says, "You're next." That's great. Just look at the background. There's a lot of detail in these things. Okay. And what's amazing is how much detail carries over into these small cards. Now, I've also played Magic since Revised, and I've always thought the same thing. They get so many details in these little in this little artwork. I know they start out big and they shrink it for the card, but still. Another maneuver. This is Mighty Strike 2. For melee, and again, this is the Starburst, so it has to be a successful melee attack. You get to inflict 1 additional wound. Now there's the Dwarf, and I wonder if that's the Dwarf guy that's included in this set. And now that is not the Axe of Weeping Wounds, because it's just a plain old axe. You need a fresh beating. The old one's getting stale. That sounds like a dwarf. Let's keep going here. Now there's only 1 skill, and this is Disarm Traps. When you have this out, your hero has +1 against trapped doors. As a response, so if you're in combat and you have this, as a response you may pay any number of glory points. You target the trap. Okay, so however much the peril, how many peril points the trap cost. Okay, let me just read it. As a response, you may pay any number of glory. Target encounter trap of number peril value or less is discarded before it can take effect. So if you pay its peril value, this will, it's kind of like a response card, like kind of a repel, but it's for traps. Anyway, limit once per use. The artwork, and you can see this guy, he is disabling the trap. Looks like a complicated one. I trained with the Master Thieves of Ravenport. This feeble trap is no match for my superior skills. Ravenport, that sounds awesome. See, I want to see more of this. Okay, now we have 3 spells. These are the last 3 boon permanent cards. So when you play this, as a response, you may pay 1 glory. All encounter monsters in your hero space have -1 magic this combat. Limit once per turn. Okay, and this says, I call upon Nakari, Queen of the Night, to confound my enemies. We know about Nakari. I see her. She's casting this darkness. So that's going to make a monster less effective. It's going to be a little bit harder. Needs a better roll to hit. Okay, that makes sense. The second spell is Fiery Blast 2, and on a successful magic attack, inflict 1 additional wound. And you can see the fiery attack, the Fiery Blast. Okay, Taste My Flames. And finally, we have the Spell Focus. And while this is in play, your hero has +1 magic. And we can see her, she's focused. It probably wouldn't be quite that intense if she didn't have such focus. But yeah, she gets a +1 on magic. All right, and the threads of arcane energy are at my command. All right, so that is all of the adventure cards that can be purchased with glory points. Thanks for watching, and come back for my next video and we'll go over all the cards that are purchased with peril points. See you then.